It is very strategic in nature, as in such questions you have to give your views, especially critical views. So it's not that you are explaining the statement given, you are totally subscribing and agreeing with the statement given. You have to write the other side of the coin as well. So as usual, we first discuss the context and then we go into the thought process. And J.S. Mill was the English thinker in 19th century. His time period was precisely from 1806 to 1873. That 19th century in which the industrial capitalism was at its peak and liberalism capitalism was challenged by socialism. And J.S. Mill is also called father of positive liberalism, because within the framework of liberalism capitalism he favored interventionist role of the state, enabling role of the state. So he is called father of positive liberalism. These are the context. J.S. Mill is having so many thoughts. His thoughts on utilitarianism, modification of utilitarianism, being disciple of Bentham, and his father was James Mill, who was also propounding the theory of utilitarianism. Then J.S. Mill on individual liberty, in which freedom of speech and expression, that is relating to that. Then J.S. Mill, freedom of action, self-regarding action, other regarding action. Then freedom of making association. Then J.S. Mill opposing Chartist movement. J.S. Mill supporting the rights of women. J.S. Mill in last leg of his life having had socialist inclinations. All those things we have not to discuss, because question is very specific. In the whole thought, question is relating to a particular thought, particular compartment of the question given. All silencing of discussions. First, silencing of discussions means whenever discussions are there, there is expression. And silencing an expression means believing that that expression is futile or wrong or undesirable or unwarranted or not serving any utility and so on. J.S. Mill says that all silencing of discussions are presumptions of infallibility. Means the basis of silencing one, the basis of suppressing the freedom of speech and expression is presumption of infallibility. Means that it is being believed that state or society or community or majority is infallible, and based on that individual's voice or minority's voice is or opinion is suppressed. This is the essence of this question, because first you must have understanding of the question. Once you understand that, then only you must start writing. Without understanding writing, anything will be totally go in vain. So all silencing, I repeat, you have to comment. So all silencing of discussions means when you silence someone, when you prevent someone from freedom of speech and expression, when you suppress an expression, when you means state or society or community or the majority believes that it is infallible and that expression is wrong. However, J.S. Mill believes that any society or community or majority which consists of human beings, not gods, can never be infallible. He will demonstrate it by giving the real historical examples of Socrates and Galileo. He will give the real example of Socrates, Galileo and Jesus Christ when they were one individuals at their respective point of time, and they were right, the whole world, the whole community was wrong. So This is the essence of this question. You have not to write an essay on J.S. Mill. I repeatedly say this because unless you understand that what is the demand of the question, what is the key word, all silencing of discussions means, essence means freedom of speech and expression. Question is regarding that. Question is not regarding freedom of action, self-regarding, other regarding. Question is not regarding freedom of making association. Not. Question is regarding the freedom of speech and expression. So we have to elaborate that, and then we will have to be critical, and then we will see the limitations of this statement. But first, we have to discuss his thought on this particular issue. So, J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill of 19th century, what is his thought regarding freedom of speech and expression? Freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression. Let me clarify that whenever we talk about freedom of speech and expression, in J.S. Mill's scheme of things, this is the uniqueness of human beings. J.S. Mill said that unlike other animals, only human beings have established language to communicate, while other animals are having only symbolic language. So according to J.S. Mill, freedom of speech and expression is the most precious and important gift of God to human beings. Most important gift of God, most important and precious, important and precious gift of God to human being, which is denied to other animals. So this precious and most important gift should not be allowed to be wasted. Every individual, every community, every minority, everyone must have freedom of speech and expression. So as far as J.S. Mill is concerned, J.S. Mill favored absolute freedom of speech and expression. Absolute means no restrictions whatsoever. No restrictions whatsoever. No silencing, no restriction, no suppression, no negation. Absolute freedom of speech and expression. Although in modern societies, in most of the societies, no freedom or rights or liberty is absolute. Otherwise, absolute liberty would be license. So all liberties, rights and freedoms are conditional to ensure it for all. Because man is also not infallible as an individual. So his rights or liberties should not breach the liberties of the other. But J.S. Mill did not believe in that. He did not favor any kind of restriction on freedom of speech and expression, as he believed that it was the most important and precious gift of God, and there should not be any restriction whatsoever. He believed that every expression is valuable. Every expression is valuable, even if it is wrong, even if it is believed to be futile, even if it is believed to be factually wrong, even if it is believed to be unwarranted, undesirable. No one should be suppressed in terms of speech and expression. As far as action is concerned, even J.S. Mill will also favor certain restrictions. But here we are discussing not action. Here we are talking about in terms of speech and expression. So J.S. Mill complete or absolute. In Gandhian scheme of things, it is not so. In Gandhian scheme of things, if you hurt others, not through action but by your speech and expression, then it is violence. But for J.S. Mill, it is not violence, because J.S. Mill is also considered to be Democrat. He favored that direct democracy was the best and representative democracy was the second best. So he favored absolute freedom of speech and expression. To explain this, to justify this, J.S. Mill gave truth principle. First we will see truth principle, then we will see the examples which was given by J.S. Mill regarding individual freedom or regarding liberty. Regarding liberty. In classical liberalism, capitalism initially started with individualism, which highlighted the theory of natural rights. However, with the passage of time, utilitarianism of Bentham preferred utility over individual freedom. However, J.S. Mill again re-established the importance of individual freedom or liberty. So, first, why he favored, on what basis he justified absolute freedom of speech and expression, no restriction whatsoever. So, to understand this, you have to understand the truth principle. Truth principle of J.S. Mill. Truth principle of J.S. Mill. It says that, first, it says that there is nothing like absolute truth. There is nothing like absolute truth. Means what we see that every claim of absoluteness in truth is a wrong claim. We have so many historical examples that one thing was considered, one gene, one enzyme theory for 70 years was considered to be absolute truth. However, Human Genome Project rejected that and said one gene can produce so many, more than one enzyme. So many things. For so long, human beings believed that sun is rotating around earth. It was visible from the naked eye, but it was proved wrong. So there is nothing like absolute truth. This was there also in Jainism, in Shayadvad. In India, Shayadvad means perhaps. Jain, Mahavir Jain, Saptabhangi, Nyayas, 7 possibilities of every aspect. Although you have not to write that. I am just highlighting and referring to contrast and to understand through comparative method. So in Jainism also there is Shayadvad, perhaps 7 possibilities of a thing. So there is nothing like absolute truth. This is the first truth principle. Since there is nothing like absolute truth, so even if one is expressing one thing which is considered to be absolute truth, against it should be allowed. Because there is nothing like absolute truth. Had there been absolute truth, then silencing would have been justified. But J.S. Mill believed that there is nothing like absolute truth against which, or there is nothing like absolute truth, or believed whatever is considered to be absolute truth is not absolute truth. This is the reason, why he is giving space for expression. This is the first truth principle. Second truth principle, these are all justification. Truth principle is basically justification of J.S. Mill for absolute freedom of speech and expression. Second, every truth is having element of untruth and vice versa. Every truth is having an element of untruth and vice versa. Every truth is having element of untruth and vice versa. In other words, whatever we know that there is nothing which is absolute truth first, and every truth is having element of untruth. You will be seeing that there is no principle in the world, there is no issue in the world which is without exceptions, which is without limitations. So in every truth there is element of untruth, and every element of untruth is having element of truth. Means there is nothing like called pure truth. Whatever is claimed by the society, whatever is claimed by the majority, is not a right claim. This justifies expression against the so-called absolute truth. So-called, because it is not. So this is the second point, because whenever we have so many historical examples also, that whatever is considered to be truth, the limitations of that were subsequently found, and whatever was considered to be untrue, the positives of it or evidences in favor of it were found subsequently with the passage of time. So this is the second principle of truth. Then third, that dynamism in the concept of truth, that truth of one point of time become untruth at another point of time, and vice versa. Means truth is a dynamic concept. Truth is a dynamic concept. The concept of truth is a dynamic concept. Dynamic concept means time, with the passage of time, various things which were considered to be true proved to be untrue, and vice versa. So truth is a dynamic concept, and with the passage of time, the notions of truth also changes. Notions of truth also changes. Notion of truth also changes with the passage of time. This is the third truth principle. Then fourth, that a truth is getting vindicated only if it comes in contrast with the untruth. So in the so-called untruth expression is valuable. White is more in contrast when black is there. So there is importance of black. And who knows that you perceive a thing as a black, white may be white with the passage of time. Whatever you consider it as untrue at one point of time may be proving to be true at another point of time. So for vindication of truth, for the contrast of the truth, expression of untruth or existence of untruth or expression of untruth is must. Truth is vindicated and contrasted only when it encounters untruth. Hence, latter is valuable. Hence, latter is valuable and welcome. Latter is valuable and welcome. Mean the so-called untruth is welcome, is allowed, is necessary for vindication of truth, is necessary for contrast of the truth. So a truth is getting more vindicated when it comes into contrast with the untruth. These are the four principles, truth principles, and these principles justifies absolute freedom of speech and expression. This justified absolute freedom of speech and expression. And we will see further that how and why J.S. Mill favored absolute freedom of speech and expression. Now, to prove this point, J.S. Mill gave 3 historical examples. Again, we are substantiating or proving right whatever the statement is saying in first part. Then second part, we will be going to see the limitations, because you are being asked to comment. So when comment is involved, you may agree or may disagree, but you have to highlight and elaborate the thinker's statement and at the same time showing the limitations. So as far as J.S. Mill is concerned, to prove this point and to justify the absolute freedom of speech and expression, he gave 3 historical examples. Historical examples, which are concrete examples, which are factual. These are factual. First, of Socrates. Socrates, you know, was the guru of Plato and was a great philosopher and favored freedom of speech and expression. His radical views were not liked by the crowd and people of king. So he was executed by the mob. This is the reason why both Plato and Aristotle hated democracy. Socrates was one individual, and he favored morality, he favored speech and expression in his time. His thoughts were radical, his thoughts were against sophists or the clever tutors at the time of Greek city-state were favoring individualism, materialism, and they rejected morality. They encouraged youths to join politics for material gains, which Socrates rejected. He says, virtue is knowledge, and unexamined life is not worth living. And at that point of time, he was executed. He was having the option to escape, but he refused, because he believed as an individual that if I escape, my thoughts would be proved historically wrong. For my vindication of my thoughts with the passage of time, I should not escape from this execution. So Socrates was great, and his was individual, and the whole mobocracy, mob or crowd or majority or men of kings who believed that he was wrong was executed, but he was right. He was proved historically right and great. So it may be possible that one individual may be right, whole world may be wrong. J.S. Mill did not deny this possibility, and this was proven through concrete, factual, historical examples of Socrates, Jesus Christ. Jesus was also a radical individual. His thoughts regarding he was against the money lending and earning of interest, and he was also crucified. He was also killed, and his thoughts with the passage of time became so popular that more than almost 50% of the world became Christian world, following the thoughts of Jesus and interpretations of his Bible. So he was one individual again. He was right and the whole world was wrong. So this is historically there, this is everywhere there, this is in every time. So every expression is valuable, every expression must be allowed. There should not be any silencing. And third example of Galileo. At the time of Galileo, he proved that earth is rotating around sun, not the sun is not rotating around earth. People rebutted him that what you are claiming, whatever we are seeing from our naked eyes, whatever is absolute truth, that sun was there in east and then it came in the afternoon and then in evening it came to west. We see it regularly, daily, and you are claiming otherwise. So again, the mob executed, but he was proved to be right. Although he did not give the example of Copernicus, but I would like to add the example of Copernicus. That Copernicus questioned the Bible's thought, which claimed that earth was at the center of universe. Bible claimed that, and Bible was considered to be the sacred book for Christians. It was and Roman Catholic Church did not allow any expression or any criticism or any commentary on these thoughts of Bible. But Copernicus experiments proved it wrong, that no, earth is not at the center of universe. Earth is only part of solar family. In universe there are so many galaxies. So they were all individuals. Even you see the example of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He was the first individual Indian at that point of time. Individual Indian who opposed Sati system. What to talk of society? His family members were angry with him, that you are corrupting our Hindu religion. You should not come in the way of Sati system. And with the passage of time, he was proved right. So, you can add some examples from your side, but in thought, mostly you have to rely on the examples given by J.S. Mill. So, one individual may be right and the whole world may be wrong. One individual may be right and whole world may be wrong. This is possible. This is being vindicated and proved by so many examples that J.S. Mill has given. Now, J.S. Mill thought is clear now that every expression is valuable, one individual may be right and whole world may be wrong, truth principle, historical examples, all these are meant to favor freedom of, absolute freedom of speech and expression. Then we move forward that J.S. Mill also believed that it's not regarding individual. We have social tyranny, majority tyranny. J.S. Mill talked about not only individual but minorities' rights also. Majority tyranny, majorities tyranny. Majority tyranny means majority's view does not become truth only because of number, and minorities' views or expression should not be suppressed because they don't have numbers, because numbers may change. They do change. World is dynamic. So some party in majority is at some point of time, at another point of time it comes in minority. At point of time one party gets only 2 seats, and at another point of time the same party is getting more than 300 seats. The point is that majority tyranny, the tyranny of public opinion, one individual's voice or one individual's expression or minority's voice or expression of few individuals should not be suppressed on the ground of numbers. We have seen that how crowd executed those individuals historically, namely Socrates, Jesus Christ and Galileo, and they were right and the crowd was wrong. So tyranny of public opinion. If public opinion is in favor of certain thing and certain individuals or few individuals are raising the voice against it, or criticizing it or commenting on it or are being critical on it, they should be allowed. This is followed in modern democracy, that every expression is allowed, even if the decisions are taken through majority. But minorities' views are allowed. So, being champion of minority rights, J.S. Mill favored proportional representation, not direct election. Proportional representation. Proportional representation is fair to minorities. In direct election, the majority community are benefited and minorities are neglected. For example, in India, Muslim population is almost 14%, but the representation in legislature is less than 5% because of direct election. And bigger parties are getting more representation and smaller parties are getting less representation. Like BSP in 2014 election got almost 20% of votes but 0 seats from UP. So the point is, all champions of minority rights will favor proportional representation. J.S. Mill also favored that minorities should be protected, they should be given representation. And J.S. Mill believed that society can be more tyrannical than the state. Society can be more tyrannical than state. This was also believed by Ambedkar. B.R. Ambedkar believed that society practiced untouchability while state provided reservation. So society was more tyrannical than the state. Although many other liberal thinkers believe that the state is all powerful and it is potential threat to individual liberty. But J.S. Mill believed that society can be more tyrannical than the state. See, state did not executed Galileo or Jesus Christ or Socrates. It was the crowd, it was the majority, it was the society. State was not practicing untouchability and sati system. It was the society which was practicing this inhuman, irrational, unscientific, cruel. Those practices were followed by society. So society can be more tyrannical. Tyranny of public opinion, majority tyranny, that should be prevented, and there should be expression of speech and expression that should have been allowed freely. No restriction at all. No restriction at all. So I hope you have understood the statement given on the J.S. Mill's justification, be it his truth principle, be it his 3 historical examples, or be it in relation to public opinion, majority, or social tyranny, or societies which can be more tyrannical than the state. So the collectivity is not always right. Had it been the case, silencing would have been justified. But many times we have seen society as the collectively has committed wrong things. They have committed sins, they have committed certain wrong things which were further proved wrong with the passage of time. And it has been proved that individuals have been proved right on various occasions. And this is our experience, historical accumulated experience. This is the reason why J.S. Mill did favor freedom of speech and expression. Now, it's one side of the coin. Now you have to write other side of the coin as well. You are asked to comment. I repeat that you are asked to comment. Comment means you have to be critical, you have to give your own views. Comment is having introduction part. So in introduction part, as I always say, it is always safe to start with the time, space, context of the thinker. that J.S. Mill was 19th century English thinker who re-established importance of individual freedom and favored absolute freedom of speech and expression. This is how you can start, directly coming to the point in introduction itself. Because word limit is there, that you have to not to write any futile sentence or words. So once you fix the time, space, context of the thinker, of the given statement, and then you pick that in the whole thought process, which particular compartment the question is relating to, and then you have to confine to that, that is locus or boundaries, and then focus what is the centrality. If silencing, who is silencing, who is being silenced, whether it's individual or whether it's minority or whether it's few individuals, who is silencing? Sometimes state, sometimes society, and mostly society is more tyrannical than state. So you have to elaborate that statement that given by J.S. Mill regarding truth principle, regarding historical example, regarding freedom of speech and expression, and that is most precious and important gift of God to human beings, which is not given to other animals. And you can explain all those things that I have discussed. Then now comment part means now you have to be critical. You have to be critical, you have to show the limitations of the existing statement, limitations of. So when you write the other half of the question, then you have to change the paragraph and you have to comment, and mostly you have to start with however. However, absolute freedom of speech and expression, absolute freedom of speech and expression will not be able to ensure freedom of all, because now you have to show the limitations, because every freedom and right, freedom and rights, every freedom and right is conditional, and this is followed in modern democracies also. In our country also there are restrictions, there are limitations to ensure liberty of all based on public morality, based on public peace, based on security, safety, survival is to be given primacy over liberty. Because if one does not survive, what will be the function of liberty? There will be no relevance of liberty. So in modern world also, in democracies also, security, public health, for example, you cannot say that I will not wear mask in public, it is my liberty, it's my freedom. It will be ill affecting public health to ensure safety, security, well-being of all. These are justified. Justified restrictions are there. In our constitution, article 19, civil liberties are there, freedom of speech and expression, assembly, association, occupation, profession and residence. But there also, there are certain reasonable, rational and justified restrictions are must to ensure liberty of all. And on the name of freedom of speech and expression, if it is absolute, then it becomes license. License to speak anything will be quite dangerous, because that this is because this will be allowing and giving space for filthy expression, immoral expression, hurting expressions, unworthy of expressions. So though the liberty should not degenerate into license, it should have justified restrictions. And every silencing of discussion means we cannot universalize it. So there has to be balance between freedom of speech and expression and that of other issues like safety, security, public health, public morality, liberty of all. These are the conditions. These are the basis. So in critical part again, you have to highlight the limitation of this statement from your side. That like in India, the emergencies laws like AFSPA, National Security Act, TADA, POTA, UAPA, NIA, Coffee POSA, there were so many, MISA, there were so many acts which were meant to ensure to deal with extraordinary situation, which curtailed civil liberty, emergency situations like a national emergency, the fundamental rights. Whenever it is declared based on national war and external aggression, fundamental rights under Article 19 is automatically suspended. And other rights can be, except 20 and 21, can be suspended. So in certain emergency situations like war or external aggression, or for sake of safety, security, after 9/11, even in capitalist country like America and Western world, the security was given primacy over liberty. And authority of state was more asserted because primary responsibility to ensure safety, security and well-being is of that of state. So in this way, you have to conclude. And conclusion should be also balanced, that you have to say that it's J.S. Mill's thought, but at the same time, in modern democracy, it is desirable that there has to be balance between individual freedom on one hand or liberty on one hand in relation to freedom of speech and expression, and security, safety, survival, public health, morality and liberty of others. By this you have to conclude. By this you will be able to write the answer. So now you have all the things in your hand. Now you are equipped to write an ideal answer, impeccable, where no one can find any lacuna. So just I am reminding you from the page 1 how you start actually writing this question. Again, comment. All silencing of discussions are presumptions of infallibility. So who is being silenced? Individual is silenced, minority is being silenced, or few individuals or community even can be silenced. And who is silencing? The majority, the state, the society, the public is silencing based on presumption that this expression is wrong, and they have whatever they claim as absolute truth, based on that this is being restricted. So you have to start with the J.S. Mill, because J.S. Mill of 19th century, you know. So in the introductory part, the time and space you have to fix. Then you have to clarify the statement. Whatever is implied, whatever is not explicit, you have to make it explicit in 2-3 lines. That here, who is to be silenced? J.S. Mill is talking about whom to be silenced and who are silencing, on what basis they are silencing. And J.S. Mill rejected that because a society or community or majority or public consists of human beings, not gods, so they cannot be infallible. Then you have to elaborate this, that J.S. Mill favored absolute freedom of speech and expression. You can underline the word absolute, so that examiner can understand your emphasis, your focus. Absolute means no restriction. Absolute means no exceptions. Absolute means nothing beyond it. So absolute freedom of speech expression, or you can in oblique to clarify complete. You can add one more line that without any exceptions. This should be allowed. Then you have to further elaborate that J.S. Mill, according to J.S. Mill, freedom of speech and expression is the most important and precious gift of God to human beings, which has been denied to other animals. Because human beings are only having established language to communicate and express. To express and communicate. So, this is how you are elaborating whatever the statement given in the question. Then you have to go to the other part of the answer, your answer, that J.S. Mill justified absolute freedom of speech and expression based on truth principles, which are having 4 components, namely, you can write this note, there is nothing like absolute truth. First, second, every truth is having element of untruth and vice versa. Third, truth is a dynamic concept, means with the passage of time, the notions of truth, the beliefs, the presumptions, they are being changed in human society. Presumption of that at one point of time, completely negated or modified or changed at another point of time. So this dynamism we should keep in mind to allow every speech and expression. And finally, even if one is lying, even if one is expressing in one's expression is considered, not actually futile, considered. Again, you can underline the word, the so-called or considered, because J.S. Mill did not believe that there is anything like absolute truth. So whatever is considered to be untrue or false or unwarranted or undesirable or wrong should also be allowed, because that will make the truth vindicated. That will contrast the truth. That will highlight the truth. So in this way, the truth principle you have to write, then you have to further elaborate that J.S. Mill did not give only truth principle to justify absolute freedom of speech and expression, but at the same time, he gave 3 actual, factual, historical examples to prove that point, namely of Socrates, Jesus, and Galileo. And they were individuals at the respective point of time, and the whole crowd executed them. People, society, community executed them, and they were right. Their expression was right, but their expression was not only suppressed, but they were executed, they were being killed by the society, and the whole society was repenting with the passage of time. And they were proved to be great individuals who were right in the historical time period, but the world was wrong. This was proved. So this is how you have to give these examples. Then you have to move further that the expression is not only of individuals but of minority and community and few individuals also. So J.S. Mill is the champion of minority rights. So this is the reason why he favored proportional representation. As you know, in proportional representation, percentage of votes correspond to percentage of seats, which is not the case in direct election. So J.S. Mill favored proportional representation. All champions of minority rights will favor proportional representation. And finally, he talked about minorities, he talked about the majority tyranny, the tyranny of public opinion. The society can be more tyrannical than the state. You can add here the examples that in Indian context also, the sati system, untouchability, caste rigidity was also practiced by society, not the state. So society can be more tyrannical than the state. And then you have to change the paragraph. Once you explain the all points, then you have to change the paragraph and write however, and then you have to highlight the limitations. You have to comment on this statement that the other side of the coin is, other perspective is, limitation of this statement is that absolute freedom, any absolute freedom or any absolute liberty would be license. It will threaten safety, security, survival, public health, liberties of others, and so on. In modern democracies also, we do have justified, rational, reasonable restrictions on speech and expression, so that filthy, unwarranted, undesirable expression is not allowed. That may have demoralizing effect on the society. And you can give certain examples to substantiate that, and then you have to conclude, as I said, that you have to conclude in a very balanced manner that freedom of speech and expression should have certain justified restriction based on those issues that I've discussed, that namely safety, security, well-being, public health, public morality, and liberties of others. This is how you write an ideal answer, and in this way you will be able to conclude. So we have done this. We will continue this series in a Q&A format, and I hope by this you will be sharpening your approach to write the answer so that it becomes impeccable, and examiners will have to struggle hard to deduct your marks or find avenues or scope to deduct marks. So that's it, and thank you.